United States men's national team won another game. Detroit City FC's new stadium construction begins soon. And what did Leo Messi's goal mean for Major League Soccer? That and more here on Friday's Morning Kick Around. Hello and welcome to the show. The sound of Franz Peckenpower means one thing. You found your way to Morning Kick Around, where we cover the world's favorite game from the world's favorite country, coming to you live each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm American soccer commentator Robert Kerr. He's Jason Davis, radio host extraordinaire. How you doing, sir? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Rob. We're here in better times. The U.S. men's national team can win games. Major League Soccer is getting represented fairly well in the Club World Cup. There's a whole rack of things happening this weekend. I am excited. We're talking to Sean Mann, Detroit City. That's a great story. I'm ready. Let's go.
Yes, if you want to assist on getting us more guests, more followers, all those things, support, make this show sustainable and grow to the heights that we want it to, hit that subscribe button. Doesn't cost you a darn thing. We've gotten well past 2,500. I'm in the midst of 2,600 or so. Become the next subscriber today. Then put it in your chats. Tell all your friends and family. Word of mouth. Big way to expand the show. Take your support up another notch. Become a member. $3.99 a month. You get early access to videos. You get priority commenting on the live stream. And you get access to the Discord server with great soccer conversations, ranging from threads on local soccer, Major League Soccer, international tournaments, and more. Become an MK Ultra and get all those perks and double down on your support of the show. You can also support on coffee.com/morningkickaround, where you can declare your own donation amount. You can also follow along on social media at @nkickaround on X, Instagram, Blue Sky. Write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. And you can also find us as a podcast. Look us up on your favorite audio platform, Morning Kick Around. Spotify even has an extra video feature. So if you Spotify, look us up on there. Great show ahead. Should we blast right into the segments?
Yeah, let's do that. But let's remind people that are in the chat today watching us live. If you're not a member, as you said, become a member. If we can get 3 members today, let's do a little drive. If we get to 3 members today, we can maybe do a bonus Q&A afterwards. Whatever is on your mind, we'll squeeze out some extra content for you. So sign up if you hadn't. It's only a couple bucks. It's like barely anything.
Yeah, $3.99 a month, and we'll get 3 guys joined in. Bonus content, good stuff there. Just 3, modest goal, and I think we can do it. All right. Let's kick off the show. Long balls here on Morning Kick Around. Kicking us off here on Friday, long ball number 1. The morning after men's national team took down Saudi Arabia in the second game of the Gold Cup, getting the men's national team into the knockout phases. Chris Richards, man of the match, scored the goal, made the crucial block. I saw highlights, but I saw mixed reviews of the performance. You were on the radio covering it last night. How did you perceive last night's performance?
Well, I mean, I won't lie. The first half was pretty frustrating. The United States had so much of the ball, but did so little with it. Unable to really get a whole lot going. I think we had maybe 1 shot on target in the first half, and I think it came in like the 43rd minute or something. So there was a lot to be desired when it came to that. I guess, what's really hard for us, and I described it as like threading a needle. What's really hard for us is trying to decide how frustrated to be as observers, as analysts, as fans about a performance like that when this is a group of younger, more inexperienced players for the most part, minus Tim Ream, minus Chris Richards in the back. This is a group that, isn't what you would put on the field if you could in, say, a World Cup game. So should we be frustrated? Should we be upset? They haven't played together a ton. Or do we give them a bit of a pass and say, hey, you know what they did? They found a way to win, Rob. And what we want from especially a younger team like that with Diego Luna, Patrick Gajamang, and Max Arfston and Jack McGlynn, is to find a way to win. And Chris Richards was the star of the show, so roll tide, all that. But otherwise, it's really tough to kind of pin it down how we're supposed to feel.
Would you say that the strengths of the sides is turning out to be kind of the back line? Where are the strengths lying here in this team, do you think? Is it too early to tell? Obviously, you said they didn't create a whole lot in the first half. From what I saw, that there was some last-ditch defending, which kind of kept the game tied until that goal was scored. Is defending their strength, or what would you say this group really has going for them after 2 games?
They kept a clean sheet. Yeah, there were a couple of moments when they got kind of opened up and you worried a bit. But again, Chris Richards making the last-ditch tackle, that you're going to need that sometimes, especially in tournament competition. I do think the midfield, for the most part, Sebastian Berhalter, who got the assist on Chris Richards' goal, played a wonderful ball in that set piece, and Luca Della Torre, who had a couple of turnovers that frustrated me, but were not necessarily damaging, right? They were not great, but he otherwise played pretty well. I think I'm comfortable with that pairing through the balance of this tournament. Now, again, those aren't the guys that I would have on the field for a World Cup match. But if we're talking about what's available right now to Mauricio Pochettino, and maybe we're trying to work out some depth and some guys who will make that World Cup team if we need them behind some of the other guys I would rather see on the field, then there's something there. Chris Richards is establishing himself. Right? He's going to be, I think everybody, and as everybody's estimation, he's probably going to be a starter at the World Cup next year. Unless injury happens. I really don't see any other way around that. Like, that's who he is now. Tim Ream is 38 years old, and it's scary to imagine him starting for the United States in World Cup matches. But until somebody takes that place, I'm kind of comfortable with him. I mean, he's very good with the ball at his feet. There's lots of things going on there. So, there's that. I just threw up Nate's comment about Patrick Ajiman. You're asking, the attack was not great last night. Diego Luna, there were some things happening. It was okay. I do think that, again, with all that possession and an inability to find ways through, one thing that frustrated a lot of people is that Max Arfston played way too negatively. He's supposed to be a wingback and not a fullback, but when you pushed him up high, he didn't do enough as a wingback to really make a difference. Patrick Ajiman, if he was 20 years old, Rob, and he was playing the way he is in this Gold Cup, I would be excited about his future. Maybe not about him in the World Cup next year, but 3 years from now, 4 years from now, I'd be really excited about Patrick Ajiman. But he's 24. He's not 20. Yeah. He came out of college, and he's a late bloomer, or his path was not what we kind of need to see young players develop. And he could take a step, and I do think moving to Europe would help him. But man, he's not the guy quite yet, and I'm not sure there's another option in this team. So that they may have a deficit at center forward moving into the final game against Haiti on Sunday, and then into the knockout rounds.
Yeah, I like the story of Patrick Ajiman because it's kind of in the world that I kind of inhabit with USL2 and the college players, and it's kind of the hope for all those players to go from that to a professional career. But you look at him, and the more I've watched him, the more I'm almost thinking that's an undeveloped player. Like, there was some level of training or development that hasn't happened between like 17 and 22. Like, to your point, he looks like a teenager or a 20-year-old that's just on the cusp of making that click to become a legit pro and a real difference maker. But his touch and just the way he kind of operates in certain spaces and his decision making looks like a young player. But to your point, he isn't that, and he should be a fully polished. If he was in another place in the world, he probably would be more of a polished player. Whether he turns into that still, fingers crossed, obviously, because we want as many good, talented, and refined players.
Yes, right. Yeah. Look, but again, this
team overseas take a 24-year-old that's unrefined.
Yeah, I could see it happening. I could see. I mean, we're not talking about a lot of money. We're not not talking about 10. We're talking about 2 or 3 million.
But at the same point, that who was the striker that had a hot run that went from college to Orlando to overseas, and he had the string of the tears. He was unrefined, so that might be a proof of concept.
I think
the one that's on West Brom. Yeah.
Okay. I think so. Daryl Dike was farther along in his development, and he was younger when he became a pro. I mean, again, Ajiman's in his second year as a pro, and he's 24. Daryl DK played, I think, maybe 1 year of college soccer, maybe 2. He left early because it was clear that he was a talent that was going to make a difference at the pro level. And now he's at West Brom. If not for the injuries, I think we would be talking about Daryl DK. And,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like, Patrick Agyemang is kind of becoming a stand-in for DK because DK hasn't been able to keep a good run of health together to continue to show us what he can do. And there's just a lot of sort of like almost guys in the striker pool for the U.S. men's national team. It's Ricardo Pepi, almost not a starter at PSV Eindhoven. Obviously, his injury kept him out of this team. Is he there? Should he be the guy? Following Balogun, rough start to life at Monaco. Talented player, but not quite there. Injuries slowed him down, and he's missing this tournament because of that. Josh Sargent seems to be a talented player, but can't put it together for the national team. Right? And then Haji Wright, who was not available last night because of an injury that he picked up in this camp, and he's maybe not even a center forward the way that you would want that player to play. So, there's a lot of imperfect stuff happening there.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the selection because there were so many players in and then out and in and out. Was Josh Sargent was he just not selected? Did he say, I want to stay back with the club?
No, he was not selected for this team because Mauricio Pochettino didn't pick him. That's it. In this case, for this Gold Cup.
I do like the fact that there are many players in the conversation, but it's also to that same degree, there's no one putting their stamp on it to say that that's absolutely my striker spot. So we shall see how the striker spot progresses for men's national team. They qualified for the knockout stages with that win against Saudi and take on Haiti on Sunday night in that final Gold Cup group stage match. Moving on to long ball number 2 here on Friday. A weird one. The Juventus football team was invited to the White House. They got to meet the president of the United States, but that kind of photo op meet and greet didn't maybe go the way that many thought a soccer team visiting a president would go.
What's frustrating about this, I mean, whatever your sense of the politics or the things that were presented in this moment, is that what's frustrating is that, and look, I guess because Tim Weah and Weston McKennie were there, it is more sort of resonant for Americans. But even if they weren't, using players as props in any of this is just distasteful. Like, it's just wrong. Like, and there was a time, and I don't know, Rob, maybe this is going to be an old man shaking his fist at the clouds kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But there was a time, and I grew up, not to say I have a better moral sense than anybody else. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But I grew up as the son of an Air Force officer, right? Like, so the idea of sort of like integrity and respect and honor and sort of representing the country and put, like, I would never do anything to embarrass my dad, right? Like, I had to be keenly aware that when I was in public, I sort of represented him. He may not have been a higher up at any point in his career. He didn't make general. He ended up pinning on colonel before he retired. But there was still this sense, like, you're on an Air Force base. It's a small little world. It's like a community. And so you become like, not the first family, but there are vibes like that, right? My mom had a role to play. I had a role to play. And maybe they're antiquated, but that was the thing. And there was this sense of, like, again, the integrity of the office or the integrity of the position. If you're a commander, you act this way and you do these things. And that is all out the window. And now you throw in my favorite sport with a couple of players who represent my national team that I care very desperately about. And the whole thing is nauseating. It's just nauseating. It sucks.
Yeah, there was a number of things they're just odd about this whole situation. There was a quote from Tim Weah, son of a former national ruler, which I'm sure our president
ruler. That's a weird way. He was the president of Liberia.
Former president. Okay, former president, former head dignitary, a head of state. Is probably the best way to put that. He said that he had no choice of going there. There was no yes or no. They had no idea that there was going to be like a press conference sort of thing going on in there.
I wonder, should Juventus have said no? Could Juventus have said no? Obviously, Gianni Infantino was also there. Like, this feels very much like Johnny is putting on a show. He loves being close to the power. He's buddy with Trump around this. He's got the Club World Cup happening in this country, obviously the World Cup happening next year. Although there's some sort of there are some troubling developments in the world of athletics and sports, and the Senegalese women's basketball team was supposed to do a African tournament camp in the US and were denied entry. They didn't get their visas, so they had to cancel their trip. And that, like, how does that mesh with we're doing a World Cup here? Right? Like, and people will say, "Oh, the whole thing about like people not being allowed in the country if they are just the average people who want to follow the national team. If you come from a country that harbors terrorists or whatever, you shouldn't be allowed." Like, I had some people in the comments when we talked about this recently. Like, oh, that travel ban it's more important that we
Keeping
keep the
America
country
safe.
safe,
Yeah.
all that stuff. Okay, fine, whatever. Again, to sort of throw a general blanket over an entire group of people because there are a couple of bad actors. Maybe just do your due diligence on those bad actors. But anyway, that thing is okay, whatever. Maybe you're saying you're keeping the country safe by not letting millions of people or hundreds of thousands of people into the country from a given nation. But athletes, you can't have a tournament if there are no athletes here. And again, this whole thing with the play acting and the photo op and those guys having to stand behind Trump at the Resolute desk, it just brings us all down, right? It brings down the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm sure they didn't wake up. The players didn't wake up that day thinking that they were going to be in the talks, and in the room fielding questions about a nuclear potential interaction. Nate popping in the chat for that, and it was interesting too that President didn't get up to shake hands. I'm guessing your Air Force father probably would have shook hands if someone entered his office. I would assume that much. And then it was interesting when the president
Is he
was
capable of standing, by the way? Is he capable? Every time I see this stuff, he's sitting at that desk, leaning over that desk. Which again, like you said, whatever your politics, shouldn't the president of the United States, like we got Richard Nixon juggling a soccer ball with Pele. Well, why is he not at least engaging these people as welcome? I don't know.
That's actually probably a fair point, that as a state, from a staging perspective, that sitting down might be the safest or most presentable way to have him have any sort of a public event at this point. But I thought it was telling about kind of like the hierarchy of a team and what leadership in a team kind of meant, because when things got to like their peak awkwardness, when the president was trying to bait them into saying that like women couldn't play on their team and asking them questions about sending nuclear missiles and stuff, they were all deferred to the manager. They all looked over at him like, help us, coach. And he did, to their relief. And the president, to his chagrin, was like, oh, you guys are pretty diplomatic, aren't you? And I thought that was a pretty good display of like kind of sticking up for your players, like not having to answer things that they were clearly uncomfortable. I think one of my skills is reading body language and trying to make people comfortable in situations. And it didn't take an expert to notice that those players were probably as uncomfortable as it gets.
Yeah. I mean, and again, it's unfair to them to put them in that situation. It's not how, again, if you're going to say, well, we're going to have Juve over to the White House to celebrate the Club World Cup here, and the Juve is playing. They played in DC, and fine. That kind of thing is pretty normal. Like, and we're doing this thing now where every choice made by any sports team around the visit to the White House signals something.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so remember when there was a moment when people thought the Eagles weren't going to go to the White House as Super Bowl champions, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, go Eagles. Some people, obviously on one side of the political spectrum, were saying, go Eagles, good job. Obviously they didn't they choose that. They ended up, they did choose to go to the White House. And it's like, there have been times in this country where it wouldn't have mattered what your politics were. Going to the White House was an honor. Didn't matter if you agreed with the president, voted for the president, whatever. And he would always be this, no understanding what the point of it was, right? To celebrate their success, but not to politicize that moment or to bring things in that are divisive, that are causing the kind of split across the country that is now erupting into all kinds of forms of protest and violence and that kind of stuff. Like, it's just gross. And I don't think, like, it doesn't matter whether you support Trump or not. It's gross. You should recognize that that's not how the president of the United States is supposed to comport himself.
Kate in the chat. Yeah, keep the conversation going here. Interactive show and all. Kate, my fear is the worst case scenario. Trump continues to escalate. FIFA cuts the U.S. out of the approaching World Cup. That would be a fear under normal circumstances, but I think Infantino, president of FIFA, is right there side by side, shoulder to shoulder with these displays, and it doesn't seem like he is eager in any way. He's almost like encouraging it. He's there with this lockstep,
Yeah.
at least
Yeah.
publicly.
Well,
I don't see that happening.
He's just a craven moron. I mean, he's not a moron. He's a smart guy, but he's just again, Johnny Infantino does not have a moral compass, does not have a sense of right and wrong when it comes to this stuff. He just wants his events to go off. And again, he's had to come out and say, "Oh, I've been promised by the president there will be no problems for the World Cup next year."
Scouts
But
honor.
we know that that's not something you can count on, the word of the president of the United States in that regard. I mean, we just can't. I don't know.
Let that just rest out there.
Yeah, I don't know what this means for next year. It's obviously gross and ugly, and I feel bad for not again, not without knowing whether Tim Way or Weston McKennie like him, don't like him, agree with his politics, don't. Obviously, there's some of this has been wrapped up in Christian Pulisic's behavior in the recent past. Like, oh, is he a Trump guy? People, if you don't like Trump, you get upset about that. If you like Trump, good for, I don't think that matters. They were just uncomfortable. It should not have been, let's ask the soccer players what their position on transgender athletes is. It shouldn't have been that way.
Let's push along, shall we? Next topic here, third long ball of the day. Fab Four. This is the part of the show where we look at the 4 top games being played across North America this weekend. Chat, the fourth of the Fab Four is your choice. So put in the conversation in the chat what your game of the weekend is. What is your Fab Four MK Ultras? We'll go Jason, myself, and then producer Jenny. Jason, what is your pick for the Fab Four this weekend?
Yeah, I get pride of place. Thank you very much, Rob. I appreciate it. Thank you. I will take. I can't believe I'm doing this. I mean, after what we just talked about, after my distaste, I've called myself a conscientious objector to the whole idea of the Club World Cup. Just the fact that it's happening, the way it's happening. Again, the attempt to squeeze money out of the soccer-loving American public, whether you are from here, not from here. So obviously we've had stories of the supporters of various teams taking over city plazas and doing all this fun stuff. I can't believe I'm going to do this, but I have become intrigued by some of these matchups that are pitting teams from across different confederations against one another. And so, although I'm sort of more fascinated by South America versus Europe, and we will get to some of that, River Plate Monterrey is tomorrow night at the Rose Bowl. Now, I imagine there will be plenty of Monterrey fans on hand at the Rose Bowl. I don't know if they're selling that joint out for this game. This is the other thing, right? I actually saw, I think it was Leander Schlakens on Blue Sky, say if they had just decided to put this tournament in MLS stadiums, the atmospheres would have been incredible. Every place would have been filled to the rafters, and it would have been great visual stuff for FIFA and for the Club World Cup. Instead, they choose these gigantic stadiums that they're not going to fill up. Now, in some cases, and I think there was a game at the Meadowlands or a game at MetLife yesterday, maybe, where there were 35,000 people on hand. Now, that's not even half that building, but
that's a good soccer crowd.
It's more than you're going to get. I mean, it's more than you can fit into any soccer stadiums, purpose-built soccer stadiums. So this is the line that FIFA has decided to walk. I don't know what the atmosphere is going to be like, but River Plate, famous Argentine football club, one of the standard bearers of South American football, certainly one of the most famous clubs in this hemisphere, up against a CONCACAF powerhouse in Monterrey, up against Sergio Ramos. I might have to check in on that game, Rob. I think that's my pick for the Fab Four.
Is that going to make you hand over your personal information to DAZN? I was on the edge there. There was a game earlier in the week. There was the first one that really got me to put over the edge. So I was like, I kind of succumbed to getting the DAZN subscription. And so I put an old kind of like anonymous type of email in there, only for it to ask for my cell phone immediately after I did that. So getting the burner email didn't do me any good. But so you've already taken the zone plunge.
Look, man. I'm a if you're saying, hey, here's some soccer that you can watch, it's gonna be difficult for me to say no. I'm an addict. What can I say? I mean, what do you want me to? I got standards. Oh, I'm not gonna do what the zone wants me to do. How else am I gonna see that game? How else am I gonna see River Plate versus Urawa Red Diamonds in Seattle or whatever?
Yeah, I think it'll be good for now, but who knows what those subscriptions get us looped into the
Since you
future.
brought it up, a couple things about the zone's coverage of this tournament, or the zone as a thing, because I had never engaged with the zone before. Obviously, it had already existed, and we know how shady all of this is with the PIF of Saudi Arabia investing in the zone at exactly the right moment for the zone to give FIFA $1 billion for the Club World Cup. Okay, yeah. The UI is a disaster because what they do is they put up like the premium experience version of the game you want to watch first. So you click it and you're like, wait a second, it wants me to pay? I thought these games were free. So then you have to go back and scroll down to find the free version of the game. And this is a very small thing, but their studio coverage, which has involved a number of people you would know, some of them I don't, and I haven't paid enough attention to know who these people are. First of all, it's very low energy. I'd like to maybe pick it up a
Oh
little bit, guys.
yeah, yeah.
But the desk is so damn big. It's like it's bigger than the playing surface at Yankee Stadium for an NYCFC match. Is what it is, Rob.
That doesn't take too much.
Okay, you're Fab Four. Go ahead.
All right, my pick. Probably less on the line as far as results, but I'm very, very curious to see how this plays out. It's Sunday night's U.S. men's national team final group stage game. They take on Haiti. Of course, like I said, the result, we'll see how much that matters because they're already through. But I really want to see Pochettino's approach to this game. The game 1 and 2, pretty much the same starting lineup, and obviously with the group in transition, does Pochettino and his staff keep that same starting 11 intact? Does he get some other players in the mix? Like, is it a rest versus rust for the new manager of the national team?
Just to tag on to what you're saying here, I will point out Haiti is going to be the toughest game of the group. Trinidad and Tobago was a disaster. Saudi Arabia defended well, but didn't offer a whole lot of danger. I mean, again, aside from Chris Richards' last-ditch tackle, Haiti is decent, and they can play, and they can beat you with some athleticism. So this will be a challenge, and I think that Pochettino has to be careful with what team he picks.
Yeah, definitely. I saw Haiti in the opening game versus Saudi Arabia, and they had chance after chance after chance, and definitely looked like a threat moving forward, but just couldn't quite finish their chances. So yeah, we should see how it is. Rest versus rest. What happens Sunday at 7 for the last group stage of a Gold Cup for the men's national team. And as we bring in Jenny for her third pick, I'll remind the chat to throw in your suggestions for the chat pick for game of the week. Weekend. What's your Fab Four pick? Chat, throw in some of the games that you are going to, make some time to check out this weekend. Jenny, producer Jenny, in the house. Welcome in. Pushing the buttons and picking the third game in our Fab Four.
I am going with domestic club action. I'm going to the National Women's Soccer League and picking the San Diego Wave against Washington Spirit. That is Saturday at 10 p.m. Couple of really good teams in the NWSL, and as Jason is about to inform us, there's some drama around this one, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, you got a subplot there in DC because Jonathan Heraldez, who's the guy who led them to a final last year, who had come over from Barcelona, where he had helped turn that team into a powerhouse in UEFA, he has already left. He's out the door, and he's going to another team that Michelle Kang owns, and the whole thing has been handled horribly. So there's something here, can the Spirit keep it up? Can they be a championship caliber team despite losing their coach? And is Michelle Kang doing her NWSL team dirty to benefit her new European acquisition?
Dangerous multi-club ownership rearing its head in the NWSL, huh?
There it is.
Check that out, 10 o'clock on CBS Sports Network Sunday night or Saturday night. This should be a fun one.
There you go. Now, there's no MLS. I don't see anything from the chat, Rob. Do we have to pick for the chat? Nobody's got a game that they want to highlight here? Anything that you want to pick out?
So if I am forced, if I'm being put onto my knees to pick a game for the MK Ultras, I'm gonna have to go to one of the short-term ones. Quick turnaround, one of today's games. There's quite a few intriguing games on our Friday slate. They got Benfica versus Auckland. Does Auckland do any better than 10-0? Bayern versus Boca, the powerful Big Bs, and then Flamengo, Chelsea, LAFC versus Esperance. There's some interesting Friday night matchups. I think.
All right, well, let's
9
leave it
p.m.
open. Let's leave it open. Let's let the chat, now that we're prompting them, hey guys, give us your pick for the Fab Four. We'll leave it open. We'll have our three. Hit the chat, and maybe we'll share it later on the show because I know we got a guest that we got to get to.
All right, we're wrapping up long balls. If you're watching this, haven't hit subscribe yet, do so now. Help us grow, become part of the American soccer conversation, even a town square of the American soccer conversation. You can also become a member, $3.99 a month. You get a whole lot of perks, and you can help this thing grow that Jason, myself, Jenny, and all of you are working on growing. Follow us along on social media at MKickround, X, Instagram, Blue Sky. Write us out, morningkickround@gmail.com, or find us as a podcast on your favorite podcast platform. All right, we're going to catch our breath. Come right back with Sean Mann, CEO of DCFC, here in just a moment. That's right. This is Get to Know Your District here on Morning Kick Round, where we spotlight various cities and clubs across the United States. And what a better time to focus on Detroit City, as DCFC is set to begin new stadium project. And once it's complete, it'll be the first soccer-specific stadium in Detroit and the biggest footprint for the sport in Michigan. To dig into this, we're happy to be joined by DCFC co-founder, co-owner, and CEO Sean Mann. Welcome to Morning Kick Around, sir.
Hey, thanks guys. Thanks for having me on.
Hi, Sean. It's good to see you. It's obviously been quite a ride for Detroit City, and now you're building a soccer stadium. I guess before we get into the details of this, and I know we've got a couple of pictures that we want to share. Did you think this day would come when you founded Detroit City back, in the early days when you brought me to Detroit, when you guys were playing short season summer soccer? Did you think you'd be building a stadium for your team one day?
Oh, I mean, yeah, you've been around the ride, and Robert's in our backyard here, so you guys have seen this. Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the more remarkable stories in American soccer, right? And so, I think we've always had a lot of ambition, and I think early on we saw the potential, even when we're very humble beginnings in NPSL and at Cass Tech. People were approaching us with ideas, and I think we've always had a pretty high bar for where we think this club can go. So, and it's hard to articulate the path we've been on and the challenges and the ups and downs. And I think because of our very humble beginnings, I think people take us for granted, I think. And so there's a lot of things that we're going up against to get to this point. And we've got a long way still to go. But it's every now and then you do have to kind of pinch yourself and look back and just think about, this path that we've been on. And it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, Detroit City FC has definitely forged their own way, inventing new versions of promotion and relegation here in the country. We'll get to that in a moment. The biggest news, obviously, I saw your video last week with you showing the players around the site. The old hospital that's going to be brought down is the first big task in building the stadium. What is the very next thing that's happening in the plans to get this new stadium on the way?
Yeah, I mean, to Jason's earlier question, no, I never thought I would own an abandoned hospital or a slaughterhouse. So, again, the things you didn't anticipate. I mean, the rendering you're showing here was an initial concept we shared with the city and then a reporter FOIA'd. So it's evolved that was from a year ago, and we look forward to releasing the final renderings and plan later this summer. But Yeah, we own a van hospital. Thought it'd be fun to take the players through that. We're all about unique life experiences, and so, but we also wanted to show the guys and get them, peek behind the curtain and talk about timelines. And so we are waiting for the permit from the city because we have to pump 1.9 million gallons of water out of the basement of the abandoned hospital we own. And once we get that going and pumped and cleaned, we can start tearing down the hospital in July. And so, just step by step. Then from there, releasing the final plans and starting the public approval process. Our goal is being true to DCFC. We're trying to create a stadium that's the most locally oriented stadium. I think that speaks to our values and the community that we came out of, and that's I think what's really exciting about the site that we picked. There's all the positive things happening there, and myself and a couple of the other owners all live within a few blocks of the stadium, which is pretty remarkable to have that opportunity. And I think it just fits into the whole narrative around this club.
What I think was remarkable about the story of Detroit City, Sean, and we've got a couple people in the chat. Our member Mike Thomas, credit to DCFC for surviving and adapting through all sorts of twists and turns. That to me is the character of Detroit City from watching from afar. That you've always sort of addressed the next thing in front of you and been willing to adapt. And that actually comes to my question about sort of like, how did this happen financially? Because there was a moment when you were going pro, when you were looking at NISA and obviously USL, where the character of the club could have very much changed because of the financial situation.
I think we've been incredibly fortunate. There's been, I would probably say, 5 different variations of DCFC on the back end, where we've had to like tear it down and rebuild it or totally evolve as like who we are. And that's part of what we're doing now as we gear up for the stadium. We're bringing in some more experienced people that who have been down this road before, but to get to this point today, we've been incredibly fortunate to find partners and people who invest in this club, but invested in us, the guys who founded this team and trust our stewardship of the club and the community around it. And so that's been incredibly unique and special, and we don't take that for granted. That people put in a lot of money into DCFC, and their default is Sean, Todd, Alex, Dave, it's your club, you make the decision. And so that's incredibly fortunate. And so it really is that vision of what we thought of 15 years ago, kind of manifesting itself into like a permanent home for soccer in Detroit.
I kind of want you to explain to those not familiar with the region, the location that it's actually in and the neighborhood that it's in. Obviously, you mentioned that there's an old hospital that needs to get knocked down, and some folks have asked me, are they going to lose? Is City going to lose some fans by like moving out of Hamtramck? But I kind of wanted you to explain like what's the thought about moving to that specific area and what that might bring in compared to anyone that might not follow along.
Yeah, Hamtramck's been great to us. Keyworth is a lot of fun, and it's a unique spot in the American soccer landscape. And I, suggest people come check it out while we're still there. But it has its extreme limitations. One, we only have 200 some parking spots, and that depends on how rainy it is before a game. More than half the stadium's using porta johns. We have real no infrastructure. The locker rooms are beyond. We're doing our best to keep everything held together. I joke, in lieu of mortar holding together this 1930s stadium, its charm is the only thing holding that place together. And we spent 5 years behind the scenes looking at various sites and engaging on transactions and like trying to secure land. And I think we caught everybody off guard that we were able to assemble 13 parcels owned by 5 different private entities, and somehow no one figured out what we were up to. And the site we settled on is right kind of just towards the bottom middle of the site. It's just a mile or so west of downtown, and it's really a dead former industrial area, an old meatpacking district and rail spurs that separates Corktown, which is one of the most historic neighborhoods in the city, where there's a lot of small business, a lot of development happening, in Mexican Town, where I live. which, as the title would indicate, has a large Latino population, and we're really bridging these two neighborhoods that there's already existing, entrepreneurial spirit, like small businesses, a lot of retail, bars, restaurants, and but also they're regional destinations where people from across this region feel comfortable going to. And we've had some issues in Hamtramck that I don't want to harp on, but I feel not only is Coretown, Mexicotown regional attractions outside downtown, 20% of our season ticket holders live in the city of Detroit and live in close proximity of the site. So one of our goals is to have one of the largest bike pads of any stadium in the country, right? And have that take advantage of the natural infrastructure of our fan base being so close to the site we picked.
Now, people love details. I see a couple questions in here from Ewan. He wants to know about a training facility, if you have any response to that possibility, and then he wants to know how different the final rendering will be from the previous ones that we just popped on the screen. The one you said is a year old, and of course, people are thinking how big is this going to be? How many bells and whistles are you putting into this, Sean? I mean, I know that you guys have MacGyvered a lot of things in Hamtramck that we've talked about over the years. How much of that is still part of this?
So in terms of size, we are applying for USL D1 status, and so the benchmark there is 15,000. So that's what we're going off of for the for capacity. I think it's going to have a DCFC aesthetic, but modern amenities. I feel like that. The feel of it for the supporters is not going to be that different than Keyworth, except for the fact that there'll be bathrooms and sort of concession lines and things like that. And one of the things we've held to is still being the only team in North America where the supporters are at midfield, right there along the fence line, within the arm's reach of the players, right? So. So those things, are what we've held to. In terms of the design, yeah, I mean, there's only so much we can do with that site, and so there's just a lot of tweaking going on, and it's a lot of just driving into details and the value engineering and make sure that's a budget we can afford, and that we can, make sure we can pay off the banks to pull this off. One of the things is there's no billionaire involved in this project. There's no one making personal guarantees, so we have to make sure that we have the revenue streams we can generate to pay off the debt to make the banks happy, and so we have a budget we have to live in, and that's the process we're finalizing right now, making sure everyone's comfortable with what we're putting out there later this year.
Obviously, you said that those renderings that we put on the screen about a year old. So this was in the works before USL came out with the announcement about promotion and relegation. Where does how did that announcement affect the building plans and the team?
The original design, when we started getting going, a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, was operating off a 13.5 capacity. So not that different than Lynn Family, Louisville Stadium. And so, now it's in a matter of squeezing in 1,500 more people into the stadium. Actually, functionally, the bigger headache with that is meeting our parking minimums. So it's meant us having to acquire an extra acre of land that we didn't plan on to being able to accommodate that many more cars. But the stadium was always conceptualized as something that could expand and adjust to demand for the game. So adding 1,500 seats, was not. It's not been the biggest problem we're dealing with.
So at this point, as you said, there are still some steps, some hoops to jump through. If you had to give us a sense of shovels in the ground, webcam that I can watch as the stadium is erected, Sean, when do you have I don't want you to make, I'm sure you don't want to make any guarantees, right? Because there's always potential trip falls in there. But where do you think we are in this process?
I mean, we are pushing everybody and putting a lot of stress on every architect and every contractor and everyone involved in this project that this could be ready for the 27 season, right? And so it's a tight timeline. That's why we're pushing to get 2 million gallons of water pumped out of the basement as soon as possible here so we can start knocking down that building and showing progress to people. and that's what we're holding ourselves to. And so we know there's all kinds of pitfalls. We've endured lots of pitfalls already privately, and as we're saying, like we do our best to make it work. So yeah, that's our benchmark is getting to 27, and you'll see progress at the site with the OSPO coming down, here this summer.
Okay, great. Now the stadium is an incredible development for Detroit City, and there that feels like maybe the end game considering where you guys started, but I'm sure there'll be something else. And you mentioned applying for D1 status as USL looks to establish the first division, and obviously Robert mentioned Pro Rel. And since we have somebody who knows what the numbers look like when you're playing at this level of American soccer, there is a debate going on as to whether or not, say, being relegated would fundamentally change your financial position, how much revenue you would lose, Sean, if, God forbid, Detroit City drops down a level. Is that something you have to be concerned about?
So we were, I think, some of the most active owners in the room or outside the room, among the other owners pushing for the Pro Rel. I think we were pretty adamant about it. We've been big boosters for it. Understand and appreciate that there's people in the USL ownership group who have stakes in teams in England and Europe who live and breathe Pro Rel already. I think our setup is unique in that one week we just don't generate revenue off broadcast right now. That model it puts the onus on us to sell the ads and and so really butts and seats is going to drive everything for us. And Pro Rel, I think there's no silver bullets for American soccer, but for us it's great stories, it's great narrative, and that's something that's on us then to spin to keep people engaged and put those butts in the seats and create a more compelling product. And so us dropping down to League One and playing Madison, is that different than us being in Championship and playing Lexington? I'll challenge the marketing team to come up with a good story and narrative to compel people to show up to that game, whatever division we're in. And so, we're excited. I think it's, I can go on and on about like where I think Pro Rel, how it, is going to help the league out, but it's an exciting time. I mean, Jason, and Robert, you guys have been in this space for a long time. Like, I could have never imagined that like a Welsh team would be being talked about on Good Morning America, right? And that like lay people, not even like lay sports people, but lay people understand the concept of Pro Rel and how it works, right? Or the top sitcom in the country has Pro Rel as a key plot line. Like, so it's a incredible opportunity to like tap into people who now understand the concept, but also then like diehard soccer fans who are tuning in on 10 a.m. on Saturday mornings who expect this as part of like the ecosystem, right? And you just never have the opportunity to tap into those two audiences by doing something like this. And so for us it just makes a more compelling product.
Definitely in a unique moment here in the American soccer landscape. I'm not sure if it's 100% unique, but definitely an unusual situation where a country is adding another league on top of an existing system, because the predecessor to the Pro Rel announcement, of course, the Division One news. So has there been any news or further conversations about the way that they're going to fill in the first division in USL?
We're all going through the application process at the moment. I'm sure once they have all the applications in, like they'll have a better idea of like how many teams are coming in and looking to do it. So I'm not in a position to speculate like how that's looking at the moment. I'm just going through all the paperwork they gave us, and I'll be fair. Like I punted a lot of it to staff, but but it's a lot, and they're obviously holding us to a higher standard to move up. So it's a great point for us as we grow as an organization. Like we're challenging ourselves already to be something that's going to thrive in this new venue, and the D1 requirements is just it just gives us another star to point to as we reorient the organization. So but yeah, I mean, it seems like there's enough interest. I was like pleasantly surprised. I was like taken back by as soon as the D1 conversation became real and the league said they're doing it, like ownership groups who I thought were more static, like all of a sudden took it up a notch. And like you're hearing that around, the table of plans and investment, and it's fun. It's exciting. Everyone's challenging each other, and you just can't take anything for granted. And I think that's a good spot to be.
Sounds incredible. I'm ready, Sean. I'm ready. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, CEO of DCFC, Sean Mann. Thank you so much for joining us here on Morning Kick Round. Very exciting to follow the story as it continues. You've come a long way and still a long way to go on this journey. Thank you for sharing with us this morning.
Appreciate it, guys.
All right, viewers, MK Ultras, if you're watching this and if you haven't hit subscribe yet, do so now. Then tell all your friends to do similarly. We are doing a goal, 3 members of MK Ultras. We get 3 new members and we will create some new bonus content. None thus far, but if you want us to get more guests, we'll have more opportunity to bring in those first hand sources. We got the CEO of a team on here, and if we have more opportunities, more time to make these connections, we can get more segments like that.
You're going to learn a lot about sort of how soccer works in America, I think, from this show. Obviously, MLS gets a lot of the attention. They got the most money. They got the biggest stadiums, but there's so much happening below the MLS level, obviously with USL. And I think Sean gave us a couple of things I didn't know. I learned something from Sean and got some insight into this process as USL sort of reformulates their business plan moving forward. We've been talking about some amateur teams and how good they've done in terms of attendance. So there's lots of things happening. Support the show and you'll get a lot more. You'll get early access and probably some extra stuff that we won't put out publicly when we talk to people like Sean Mann.
If you want to follow along on social media, you can do that too at Morning Kickaround X, Instagram, Blue Sky. Write us a note at morningkickaround@gmail.com. One of our bonus segments, we've got some more pro-rail manifestos and some other really nice notes that have been sent in. We got one with some renderings from the old Minnesota stadium and some before and afters of like what was the initial plan and what came out. So that was a cool note to get in the inbox. So collaborative affair here. Like I stumbled through trying to become one of the American centers of the soccer conversation, and you are a big part of that. All right, we're going to catch our breath. I'm going to have a sip of my coffee, and we're going to come right back with our final segment of the week. Big question coming up here on Morning Kick Around. All right, big question here on Morning Kick Around. It is Friday, June 20th, the morning after Leo Messi won a Club World Cup match with his magical left boot. Obviously, that makes Johnny Infantino happy. He made up a rule to get Inter Miami into this. The supporters' shield, never more important than in 2024, got Inter Miami in, and Messi, star of the show, gets a late winner. So big question of the day, what does Leo Messi's game-winning Club World Cup goal mean for Major League Soccer?
I think it means a lot. I do. I think this is a big thing for MLS. I think Seattle has acquitted themselves relatively well through 2 matches, but they haven't won. We'll see what LAFC does today against Esperance, but that's not the measuring stick for MLS. A team from Tunisia is not going to win MLS a lot of credit. An MLS team, and look, Porto's not in a top 5 league. They're not a European power in 2025. They're a former European champion under Jose Mourinho. Let's not forget that.
One of the best, you'd almost say one of the top 5 feeder teams in the whole world, though.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, in terms of the talent that goes through Portugal and Porto, absolutely there is that. They're not pushovers. And they're certainly, in the estimation of every single person who pays attention to MLS or to soccer, rather, to world soccer, Porto is held in higher esteem than any MLS team. Doesn't matter if you got Lionel Messi or Sergio Busquets or Jordi Alba. They're going to be higher on the list. Porto, of course, they're better. And Miami beat them. Now, there's some context here, Rob, if you really want to sort of pull it down a bit. Porto's in their preseason or they're in their postseason and they're all tired. And this game was played in a different environment. And there weren't that many people in the building and it didn't feel important. And I don't know, whatever. You want to throw out all the excuses possible for Porto, you can do it. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. It's actually drives home that argument that sometimes we make about Major League Soccer in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, that the season schedule really hurts MLS in that competition. Obviously, Vancouver went all the way to the final. Columbus went all the way to the final. But we know how much harder it is for an MLS team in the early stages of their season to ramp up to the level of the Liga MX teams that they're facing, who are generally speaking spending more money on players than MLS clubs. So that's like a disadvantage on top of a disadvantage. Here in this case, Major League Soccer is into their season. Porto's coming out of a long season or getting ready for a new one. The schedule, the calendar is not in their favor. You could say, well, that's a part of the reason that Porto lost this game. Sure, you could. But nobody says, well, MLS, that's a totally excuse in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Just give them a pass. Everybody says MLS is not as good as Liga MX until they can beat them. So what does this mean? Does it mean MLS is on the same level as the Portuguese league? No, that's not what it means. We're not drawing any grand conclusions. We're just saying that MLS is good enough that on their day against a quality European side that regularly competes in the Champions League and regularly competes for titles in their reasonably good European league, they can do this. Like this is something possible, I guess. And it actually is a proof of concept for Gianni Infantino, as much as I hate to say that, Rob.
Yeah, I was gonna note that as well. Angus's comment, MLS has outplayed his expectations, so that's good for Major League Soccer. I fear that this will be annoying that Major League Soccer is gonna reference this win repeatedly about, we beat a top European team and whatnot. But yeah, I think this goal, this win from Miami and Messi is the biggest win for Gianni Infantino. I think it really does for him because Club World Cup and FIFA are going to put that goal in all their materials. This was why the Supporters Shield became the reason that, became an entry point to this competition, was to get Messi attached to this competition. And then a moment like a free kick where all cameras are on him and it's a winner. It couldn't have gone any better for
Segovia's goal was very good too.
Oh,
I mean, let's not take that away from Inter Miami. It's not like they won just on Messi's left foot and didn't do anything else in the game. They created that goal that Segovia scored to give them a chance to win the game off of Messi's free kick. I would say that's interesting from Mike. Messi can't even sell at a stadium anymore. Maybe there's a little fatigue. Again, timing and stadium choices aren't the best here. I'm going to actually put up Daniel and his comment. From the games I've seen, the European teams have been poor. Now, Real Madrid was played to a draw. Who did they draw with? Somebody's going to remind me.
Wydad,
the Casablanca team. They drew with the Casablanca team. Last night, Botafogo beat PSG. By the way, a PSG team rocked Atletico Madrid 4-0 in their opener. What I think we're seeing is that there are some European teams that are taking this relatively seriously. There are some that are taking it more like a preseason tour, and you're going to see a mixed bag. And you can't draw any grand conclusions, and you probably shouldn't, right? But what you can say is, if the European teams don't bring their best, or they're in a moment of transition, remember that Real Madrid has a brand new manager in Xabi Alonso, right? This is a new thing for them. Inter Milan, who has not been great in this tournament in their performance, they drew against Monterrey. They have a new manager because Simeone Inzaghi is coaching a different team in this tournament. It's from Saudi Arabia. Like this thing is so weird, but it's like weird in a fun way. And as I said, I hate giving Gianni Infantino credit for anything, but I'm intrigued by this. And Messi's Inter Miami's win with Lionel Messi doing that thing that he does, the magic he creates, is absolutely a massive, massive, massive bit of advertising for this.
Andy Arriaga fact-checking us. It was Halal who drew with Real Madrid midweek. But yeah, comes the calendar stuff. We talk about it, MLS teams and CONCACAF Champions Cup. Could say similar for the European teams. Plus, I've seen more complaints about the weather conditions being a factor for the European teams. Obviously, they're tired after their full slate of games throughout their league season. But then not too many of them are used to playing in
Right.
95-degree California midday heat as well. I saw a quote, I think it was from the Madrid Atleti player, saying that his toenails were like melting off or something like that.
Is that
And so-
possible? That's a thing? No way. I guess
Or-
inside a boot, I guess, maybe on some, I suppose. I guess it's possible. I mean, they put grass down. I mean, it's not like they're playing on artificial surfaces, which is another thing.
Frying pan.
This is a thing, right? The humidity. Shout out to Mike. I went running in the humidity yesterday. God damn, it was rough. Mike, I feel you. Mike and I are running buddies on the apps that are out there because he's also a bestie over the Best Soccer Show. And I know how much Mike runs, way more than I do. That man puts in miles, and it's been hard on the East Coast. You can't really get out there and do a lot when you feel like you're running through soup, right? So this is a thing. The delays and the weather and all that stuff, that's, you can't do anything about that, but it absolutely is maybe a harbinger of things to come next year with the World Cup. I mean, Pamit is asking about why the games are scheduled during the middle of the day. That's European audiences, buddy. Like that's Johnny is not just selling this to Americans. He wants Americans to buy the tickets, or he wants people living in America to buy the tickets to fill up the stadiums.
Yeah, Chelsea at 3:00 in the afternoon. What time is it in England?
Yeah, I mean, that game was played indoors, thankfully, in Atlanta, which is also going to be the case for I think there's a game today that's taking place in Atlanta, or maybe it was the Inter Miami game. That game was in Atlanta. My mistake. That was that game with that victory. And maybe if that game happens, Porto Inter Miami happens outside, maybe it's a different result. Maybe it's a different game. I don't know. Maybe that benefits Miami. I don't know necessarily how it could. They have a lot of old guys, but yeah, it's not the best environment to play football, to play soccer, Rob, and yet it still has enough attraction for me that I'm fascinated by what's to come. And we picked a game from this for our Fab Four earlier when I said that I was interested in River Plate and Monterrey. Today you've got Flamengo Chelsea, which should be fascinating. That's at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia, where it's going to be warm. That game kicks off at 2 p.m. Eastern time in Philadelphia, that's where Mike has been trying to run in the humidity. So let's see.
Speaking of the Fab Four, we need to get our fourth pick in from the chat. One of the main suggestions I saw from Angus, Bayern Beer versus the Boca Burgers. Is that our Fab Four game of the day? It's certainly a unique. This is okay. So this sort of a matchup is why kind of this competition exists and can create some intrigue. Obviously, if there's more additions, there's some refinements to be made. But having the German champions versus one of the all-time greats from South America meet up in a competitive game, that's the sort of thing that drives the intrigue.
That's going to be a party for Boca fans. Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. Bayern Munich is going to feel like an away team. They're going to feel like it's not going to be the Bombonera. It's not that level, obviously, but there are going to be a lot of Boca fans in Miami for that game. I've seen video. Simon Evans posted video of the Boca fans taking over South Beach, like just wall-to-wall Boca fans on South Beach. This is the thing that is most fun. There is some fun stuff. Inter Miami beating Porto is fun. Even Seattle, putting in a fight against Atletico Madrid was fun. There are some other things that have happened, but it's the South American teams in particular
have
brought the heat for this Club World Cup. And that's why no matter what the background is, no matter where the inception point was, or no matter why FIFA is doing it to box out UEFA, to make more money, to squeeze American soccer fans, et cetera, the concept works because we don't get to see Bayern Munich play Boca Juniors with anything on the line. And maybe Bayern doesn't care about this competition the same way they care about the Champions League or the Bundesliga, but they don't want to get embarrassed. They absolutely do not want to get embarrassed by Boca Juniors. Meanwhile, Boca Juniors, this is, maybe a Copa Libertadores final is bigger, but this is their Super Bowl. They get to face off against a European giant and prove that South American football is good. And Argentine players, have you ever not backed them in a fight, Rob? Come on.
Yeah, they'll dig in, and for context, like there's more than just not being embarrassed for Bayern. I mean, there's like what $1 or $2 million per victory is guaranteed in this. So I mean,
Yeah.
everyone's making a big deal about TST being $1 million tournament. This is literally $1 million per every single game won. So the stakes are high. Obviously, that's one of the points that makes this contentious, is just like stuffed money at it to make it relevant. But yeah, you were talking about Boca. That's a bucket list, going to a Boca game. Like if I could go with like a local and know the right places to go and how to do it in a responsible manner, absolute bucket list. Would absolutely love. If you've seen any sort of highlights about a Boca game, like after a victory, I don't even know if it means a victory, but that stadium in full voice is just watching it on my phone just gives me goosebumps. Yes. I can't imagine being there.
La Bombonera is on my bucket list. It might be the number one. I mean, I want to go to the Parc des Princes. I want to go to Anfield. I haven't been there. I'm a Fulham fan. I'd love to go to Craven Cottage. I know the atmosphere is not, the same kind of place. I still want to go. There are a number of places in Europe. But if you ask me if I had to pick one, it's probably La Bombonera, but Estadio Monumental, which is the home of River Plate, might be number two. Like it might be right there. Those two teams have such a reputation for the passion of their fans, for the kind of environment that they present. Yeah, and this, again, the United States, Hard Rock Stadium, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, the Rose Bowl, Lincoln Financial Field is not the same, but there is a little bit of taste of that, which is great.
Great episode of the show today. Great Friday. It was great to be joined by Sean Mann from Detroit City. Talk about the various intermixings of politics in the game we love. And then we got to talk about the men's national team getting a win. So a great Friday, getting you started off on the right foot. One more thing from the chat. Andy, a regular viewer, going to Colombia for the weekend. He's going to let us know if they are engaged down there. That would be some interesting reporting too. We didn't get the membership goal, so I don't know if we're going to get any bonus coverage today or bonus videos today, but we will take any suggestions for bonus content for stuff, because we can kind of open. We're a little bit freer with copyright and stuff like that for our private videos. So if you have some ideas of stuff we don't do on a regular thing, go ahead.
I also I saw somebody earlier in the chat was saying that we should get some soccer YouTubers on. I think that was Andy who's going to Colombia. Let us know who we should have, I guess. I mean, I'm not really immersed in the soccer YouTube world. We've reached out, I think, to a couple of people, but if there's people that you would like to see do a crossover with Morning Kick Around, definitely let us know. We're happy to do that. I also think at the end of this show on a Friday, we want to hand out our MK Ultra of the week, which we have done in the past. We've inaugurated that last week, I think. This week, we're going to give it to Nate. Nate is our MK Ultra of the week, always in the chat, always driving conversation. He is a member, which you got to be a member to be an MK Ultra of the week, because you got to be an MK Ultra to be an MK Ultra of the week. So shout out to Nate, who's always here, always bringing it on the live shows.
Yeah, thank you, Nate, and thank you to all the members. Just $3.99 gets you all those perks. Yeah, Nate the Great. Put that on the screen, and with that $3.99 membership, you get priority commenting, you get early access to videos, you get exclusive access to bonus content as well, and then what really could be kind of like the ace in the hole for becoming a member, the access to the Discord chat, where there's some great conversations going from local MLS promotion relegation conversations all the way to the national team and beyond. So great soccer conversations going on the Morning Kick Around Discord channel. If there's anything else, is there any other housekeeping? Coffee.com/Morning Kick Around. There you can name your own donation. You can find us as a podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Email, social media. We talk about it all the time. We don't need to go through that again, but happy Friday, everybody. We will be back on Monday. And until then, everybody, enjoy your soccer.